Today we're going to be talking about backup as a service, and specifically a new product that we've launched with our partner in New Zealand, Comet. So we'll be showing you a bit of how it works and some of the tech, and yeah, also just we'll have a couple of things at the end to sweeten the deal and to hopefully give you something to take away and think about and maybe deploy in your infrastructure. So I guess we can just get started. So you'll have two of us today. So my name is Ruben Schade. I'm a solution architect here at OrionVM. So I'm one of the gents who, if you call up asking about how I need to migrate some infrastructure off another public cloud onto us, or you want to figure out how to architect something, do a whiteboarding session, I'm one of the guys who picks up the phone and helps out. So actually, prior to this role, I worked in the operations team. So I'm intimately familiar with the platform and how it works. And yeah, just really enjoy talking with people and seeing what people do with our tech. It's really cool. And you've also got Josh Flores here. So he's the general manager of Comet Backup based in New Zealand. So he'll actually be giving you a walkthrough of what the portal looks like and how the backup agent works, etc. And we'll speak more to the tech.
Hello.
So yeah, oh yes, yes, to see you. Yeah, it's I'm also we're working from our offices as well, which is nice. Cool. So in terms of the agenda today, so basically give you a high-level overview of the current backup landscape that we see it. Go through a bit of detail about how OrionVM BAS with Comet works and how it actually does provide that protection. Give you a bit of a technology background. That's my personal favorite section. Then we'll dive into a demo so you can actually see it working with some data, and Josh will give you an idea of some of the sort of the key takeaways and comparisons and things, which I think is really useful. Then we get into some of the nitty-gritty on the business benefits and specifically where we think there's an opportunity in the market to really make some margin and to deliver a product that I think will be valuable for your clients and one that will actually build trust. And then we'll sort of get into some incentives and what I call the money slide at the end to sort of, for those of you who've turned up, to sort of give you a bit of a treat and something that you can take away to think about. So I can see a lot of familiar faces in the attendee list, but I also appreciate that we've got some people here who don't have stuff on Orion. So I guess just to give you the very quick spiel, OrionVM is a wholesale infrastructure as a service provider. So we started in Sydney in 2010. We've since expanded to the United States and we have offices in New Zealand as well. Basically, our core pitch from the start was that we figured out a way to do storage replication infrastructure more efficiently, faster, and using commodity hardware. So we could deliver a Nutanix style hyper-converged architecture, but because we're using an InfiniBand stack and commodity hardware, we're able to deliver that at much lower cost with much greater resiliency, and we can hit it at that price point. So we've been going for about a decade now. Really sort of we started as a retail cloud, sort of in direct competition with some of the big names that you know about, but I think we've really carved ourselves a unique niche in the market for wholesale cloud and white labelable cloud. So you can take our infrastructure and sell it as your own. And so MSPs, telcos, systems integrators, we're the perfect fit for those kind of market segments. And yeah, we've got a team in San Francisco, we've got POPs in the US and Sydney, Melbourne, and we've got offices in New Zealand too. You can see some of the partners that we work with there. So I guess just a very high level, the reason why we partnered with Comet, and this is why we're really excited to talk about this today, is that Comet in New Zealand is very similar to OrionVM in terms of its business model, company culture, and what we consider really important. So there's a lot of words there, but in a nutshell, we know how the stack works. We run and control everything from the servers all the way up to the software. So Comet runs on our infrastructure. We know it inside out. The Comet team obviously wrote it themselves. So when you deploy Comet on OrionVM, you're not just deploying another rubber stamp name brand thing somewhere out there on a public cloud that you have no idea how it works or have any control over. So you get a level of transparency from us that you don't get from other providers. We also just pick up the phone as well. Like, one of the things I really enjoy about my job is the fact that clients will call us and say, hey, we have someone who's potentially looking at doing something. Will this fit on you? How would it work? We're happy to whiteboard things out with you. And so Comet is very similar in that respect. So you get a level of responsiveness. And we really value the fact that we take our relationships as partnerships, as opposed to just, you're not just going to a distie and buying another license. We actually are invested in your success because your success is ours. So in terms of the actual backup landscape, this is something that we quite regularly do surveys with companies like CRM. We also have, obviously, we work with a lot of MSPs and end users, and so we get an idea of what the pain points and the what they're deploying at the moment, what they see are issues. And really, there are kind of 4 key things that current backups, enterprise backups, I should say, are doing today that just really are frustrating. So first of all, they're either expensive, they're complicated, they're time consuming to maintain, and most importantly, they're difficult to restore from. When push comes to shove and someone's knocking on your door and they urgently need your data restored, you don't have time then to sort of think about, well, how does this work? Have I even tested these? Where's the data sitting? How do I do it? Is this going to meet my SLAs? It can be incredibly frustrating. And you end up in a situation where you feel like you take a hit on your reputation for something that's ultimately you deployed in good faith, assuming you could even afford to purchase it and have the ongoing licensing costs. So we saw an opportunity in the market there for a enterprise grade backup system with the ease and use and functionality of more traditional end user backups. I often talk about, I was actually on a phone with someone last week, and my grandfather worked at Xerox back in the day in Australia, moving around punch cards and tape reels. You would think that this would be a solved problem, and it really isn't. So in terms of what OrionVM BAS is, so there are really 2 parts to this. First of all, it's a turnkey service that you can deploy today. You can be an OrionVM customer. You can use it for OrionVM infrastructure. You can even use it for laptops, remote workstations, clinics and GP offices, everything all the way up to your server infrastructure. You can deploy disk image backups, files, databases. There's a whole suite of different things that you can do. You can also mix and match them as well. So you can do a disk image backup, but also do a file backup. So you're not recovering an entire disk image if someone butterfingers a file or they delete something, all the way up to if your server gets crypto locked or if an end user loses their laptop. And even database level things. So you're actually doing the log shipping for those kind of things too. And the key thing as well is that you get a level of data sovereignty with us as well. So you know that in particular with Australian clients, I know for a lot of people we talk with, a key concern that they have is that they would love to deploy enterprise BAS in their retail or their medical companies or legal firms or these companies with sensitive data, education as being another example. And they've been limited because they can't get guarantees from the big vendors that data won't be shipped off somewhere else. So you get those guarantees from us, and that's really important. But then you also have the other side, which really plays to our strengths as a wholesale cloud infrastructure provider. You get awesome margins on us. So it's very, very easy to make margin, add your own services on top of that. It's an upsell opportunity. You get the white label branding and all the permission controls and things that if you run stuff on Orion, you're already familiar with. And it's powered by the Comet Backup system, which was developed in Australia and New Zealand with our team. So in terms of the technology, again, Josh will get into the nitty gritty about how this all works in a second, but at a high level, it's easy to install, configure, maintain, restore. You can push configuration to remote sites, so you don't need to install TeamViewer every time someone needs a change, which is really nice. It's also just been thoroughly deployed and written from scratch for the 21st century. I was making the joke before about tape reels. So much enterprise BAS systems now, the big names that everyone's familiar with, were written for legacy systems and file systems. This was written for object-based storage from scratch. And we'll see in a moment why that's really useful. And so you get the security, the reliability, dependability of something that's just been very thoroughly written for this modern infrastructure, with also the benefits of the fact that you're deploying it on an object-based system. So you don't need to worry about, does my backup target have a sufficient hard drive space? Do I need to deploy multiple terabytes of a disk to be able to ship these backups to? And that's a huge sunk cost on my side. So you get a scalable, infinitely scalable object store from Orion, which then connects up to Comet, and you get the best of both worlds. And then, yeah, as I was saying, it's also fully white labeled. So you get the management console per client, which you can deploy as your own. You can label it with their name, you can label it with yours, and it integrates perfectly with our wholesale infrastructure, which you'll also see in a second. So I'll hand you over to Josh now, who will show you the high level of overview of how the infrastructure works, and give you a demo and to give you a bit of background on Comet itself.
Thanks very much for that, Ruben. That was a really great run through for, I suppose, some of the very initial benefits of Comet and sort of what we do. I might get you just to jump over just to the next slide for me, and I'll just give you guys a bit of a run through about Comet, who we are, and what we're doing. So first of all, it's really great to be able to be here, to be invited for Orion to speak to you guys, and really to talk more about the solution that we've got between us now. That's essentially becoming something very big in the backup space, and that is having BAS. We spend a lot of time speaking to service providers all over the globe, and there is a giant shift from them running their own storage and servers and the cost around that, to looking to moving BAS platforms that obviously allow them to just go out and focus more on selling backup than having to manage and maintain infrastructure that's often cheaper and a lot more efficient for them to do. So just to give you a little bit of a history of Comet and sort of how we came about and that type of thing. The backup space is quite small and competitive, and we're certainly the newest players on the market. We've got 2 decades of experience in the backup space. In the early 2000s, we were actually a backup company here in New Zealand, and we were one of the largest that was doing medical sector and legal backups. During that time, we were running a number of different backup solutions to provide the service. A number of them you'll be quite familiar with, and there's probably a few of you on this webinar that are using them right now. And we're finding some challenges of using them on a day-to-day basis for monitoring and managing those solutions. So we developed an internal tool to basically handle that situation. Fast forward a little bit further, we sold our backup business, and we continued to grow and market our monitoring and management portal for the main backup platforms out there. And this service supported a number of MSPs and large backup providers around the globe. And during this time, we were starting to get a lot of feedback from them about what was good with them, what was bad with them, what features they were lacking, and what they would really like in sort of the ideal backup solution. And so we realized that we're actually sitting on essentially quite a big blueprint for what would be a really good MSP service provider focused backup solution. And that's when we started to develop Comet. Fast forward to 2017, and that's where we've launched Comet. And since then, we've gone on to support partners in, I think, over 60 different countries. It's been translated into 10 different languages, and we're certainly growing even more. The opportunity for us being the newest guys on the market is that we're able to innovate and work really quickly and aggressively to match the needs of the market. Whereas some of the bigger guys, they're obviously very entrenched in the platforms they often wrote a long time ago, and it takes them a long time to innovate and do things a bit differently, where we're coming from the angle of we've seen the deficiencies and frustrations, and we're looking to address those now. So everything that I'm going to show you with Comet has been developed from the perspective of that we only develop backup and work with service providers. We don't develop any solutions for end users. We don't provide any end user functionality. We're purely just to develop software for other people to take, rebrand, and offer for their own backup solution or service. If you could jump over to the next slide, please. So getting to what we can actually do in terms of backup, the capability itself. So it's available for Windows, Linux, and Mac. And we've got a number of different backup types. So that includes being able to take full disk images, files and folders, MS SQL, Microsoft Exchange, System Backup, MySQL, MongoDB, and even program output. But two of obviously the most, I suppose, popular backup types that we offer is the file and folder and the disk image backup itself. And we'll just jump over to the next one. We're getting really close to the demo. We'll actually walk you through the software. So I just want to cover a couple of key things that if you're currently running backups, these are the things that you'll be looking for and wanting to see in terms of the functionality. So we've got sort of 4 key underlying pieces of technology in Comet that really give us the advantage and put us ahead of any sort of other type of backup solution. The first is client-side deduplication. And what that means is that when backups run, they are deduplicated client-side before sending it to the server. A lot of other backup solutions out there will send all of the backup data to the server and then force the server to then run the deduplication and delete any data that's not needed for that backup. That's obviously very bandwidth intensive. It takes a lot of time to do that. And it often means that the server needs to be very highly spec'd. By us doing it client side, it means it's really fast and it's really efficient. The second is Comet's incremental nature. So Comet is what we call incremental forever. After the first backup runs, it's only ever going to upload the changes to the storage destination. There's no fragile chain technology in here. There's no differentials and there's no delta merging. If you're familiar with a certain type of backup product out there, you'll know that this is definitely something very different from what they're currently doing. Next is the full re-uploads. So a number of other backup products, periodically they have to re-upload the full file after a certain amount of time because the chain gets quite large. Obviously that can be quite problematic if the full file size is quite big. That could potentially blow out the customer's bandwidth, often consume a lot of data and time and that type of thing. With us, the first time is the only time it does the full file, and then after that it's just the little incremental changes that need to be added to the backup itself. And lastly is our compression and encryption. And this really plays quite nicely with Orion's focus on security and data sovereignty. And that's with Comet, that every backup that runs is compressed before it's uploaded. And secondly, it is encrypted right the way through. So from backup to transit and at rest, it is always encrypted. The only time it is decrypted, sorry, is when a backup is being run. And with that encryption, it happens client side. A lot of other backup products, you'll hear that they have this, but what it means is they decrypt it server side, send the data over the internet back to the customer site. And that's obviously a bit of a security concern there. So ours is very secure. It's one of the things that we certainly noticed with a lot of other backup solutions out there, was that they did that security in piecemeal. Well, we've sort of really doubled down on giving us that secure focus for the next generation of backups. And we've got one more slide now, and then before I'll start showing you the software itself. And these are just some quite cool aspects that certainly resonates quite well with our partner base. The first is direct to cloud. So you're able to configure your backups from the customer site to directly back up to an Orion storage destination. There's no having to go through a server or anything like that, direct from the customer site to the storage location. The second is that there's no spool space required. And what I mean by that is a number of other products out there, you will have to have an additional amount of free space available on the computer that if you run a backup, that it can spool that data to as it's being backed up. Comet does not need any spool space. If you're doing a backup, you just need, the standard amount of free space available. For that, nothing crazy or additional. Next is the USB recovery, and this is a new feature that we've released to Comet that allows you to very rapidly create recovery media for restores and full disk image recovery, which I'll certainly cover to during the product demonstration. And lastly is the rebrandability. So everywhere where you see next in the server or the client software, we've got some Orion branding on it. We've also got some Comet branding on it. Just imagine that with your own logo, or you don't even have to rebrand it. It's entirely up to you. It really depends on how you want to customize and use the service for yourself, depending on whether or not you want to use these options. From our point of view as a backup vendor, we're to develop cool and innovative solutions and provide you the option so that you can use Comet, customize it however you want to fit your business. So that's enough of a bit of a discussion of the technology itself. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump over to my desktop and it's just going to walk you through the software itself. So I will do that, and 1 is 2. So hopefully you can see my screen now. Is that fine, Ruben?
It is, yep, I can see now.
Yep, that's cool. Okay, so what we've got here is the server interface for Comet itself. We've got a number of different quick options here on the left. You're able to add a user, you're able to download the client software, there's the additional server setup wizard for further customization, and you can access the recent activity really quickly. I'll come into those a little bit later, but just giving you just a bit of an overview of the main dashboard. You're able to see what devices are online, if the client version that they're running is outdated. You can see the status of your environment for what's happened in the last 24 hours. You can see a classification of how many backups and restores have been running, some details about your server history around buckets, users, and devices, and obviously what version of the software you're running itself. I'm going to walk through the accounts area, which is the main area of Comet that people use to facilitate their backup business. And firstly is the user section. So I've got a demo account here that I'm just going to show you. So when you set up a user, you've got all these different options for how you want to configure and use their account. We can obviously configure whether or not we can reset the password if they need to change it the next login. You've got options around setting quotas. So if the customers have only got a limited amount of space or different types of plan, they can do that. And also whether or not they're restricted to a number of devices. If you want to configure if they receive email reports and service bulletins, you can do that there. Next is the protected items. And this is what you might also call your backup sets or backup types. And from here, we can see these are the various types of backups running on this user. And the neat little thing that we have here in Comet is that you can click on the item and say, for example, you wanted to configure or set up a backup remotely. You can do this through the Comet server interface itself. I can use this here to live browse the machine and add and deselect different items to be included in the backup. So what this means is it's really nice that if you need to reconfigure a customer's backup or include some more folders, you don't need to spend time to organize a remote session or anything like that to select those files. You can just come here and set that up on the fly, making it really nice and a bit of an invisible service to the customers itself. We've got storage vault administration. We've got a way to overview and see the devices, the number of protected items. We can see if they're online. And then we've got policies, which I'll come to a little bit more shortly. But just to give you a brief overview, policies allow you to configure customers to have, I suppose, some rules around their backup service about whether or not they can do certain actions, certain backup types, and just the general usage of their account. And this allows you to essentially make backup plans and enforce them on various customers. Next is connected devices. Now, Comet always maintains a live connection between the backup client itself on your customer's machine and also the server. So this allows us to do some very cool stuff, like if you run a backup or do any type of action that's going to affect the client software, the moment you push run in the server itself, it starts near instantaneously on the customer's computer as well. So there's no waiting or polling or anything like that. What we can see here is we can see the username, we can see the device that it's running on, the actual customer name, the version of the software, what platform. I'll just turn on the advanced options. And we've got some further actions. We can run a backup remotely, we can run a restore remotely. On a per user level, we can upgrade the software, we can uninstall it, we can refresh the profile, terminate processes, drop connections, a number of different administration options to give you that flexibility to do that remotely. From the properties, we can even see the IP address, which sometimes makes things tracking down problems and what machines you're working on a lot nicer. There's a lot of different things that we can do here with the connected devices that I will come to a little bit later. Next is bulk update. So a number of backup platforms really struggle with this, and that is the ability to remotely upgrade all of your customers' devices if there's a new software version available. With Comet is essentially run by a campaign, so you can not only upgrade, but you can reinstall entire sections of your customer base. You can downgrade to older versions if necessary, and you can start this campaign and schedule it. So this allows you to really have that flexibility for pushing out bulk upgrades to your customer base. And this really fits in with our model of allowing you as a service provider to do these things remotely and have control over it without having to do remote sessions and more manual sort of intervention. Next is the policies. So as I mentioned, this is the way how you can set up different essentially backup plans and apply them to customers or groups of customers. So from here, you could perhaps restrict the type of storage destinations they could back up to. You can lock them out from being able to edit the backup set. So for example, some service providers have models where they don't actually let the customers configure anything in the client. It's a completely managed service. If so, you can restrict that at the customer level. You can restrict and deselect the types of backups that you're offering. So if you're offering pay different tiers of plans and backup types, this is a way how you can do that in the client itself. And then a plethora really of different options that you can go through and configure and enable for the customers. It's just as us again, just providing you all the different options to allow you to configure the service to suit you and your customers. Next is the job history. So what the job history allows you to do is run a number of searches across the entire partner base and see that. We've got quite comprehensive reporting to being able to see what's going on. Here we can see the device, the protected item, obviously details about when the backup's running, the sizes, that type of thing. We can also remotely view the reports of what happened with the job. We can also go in and view the files as well that ran during that backup. And then we have the recent activity page. And so this is really for providing you a really interesting way that you can go and quickly see at a glance any potential problems or things that you need to resolve in your backup environment. So from here, because we've got a live connection, we can see that these devices are offline. We can see that these don't have a schedule. By Comet's nature, we can go through here and edit those. So we could go in and add a schedule to remove that problem. And then we've got sort of the weekly overview here. And this shows you on a daily basis backup activities. So we can see here, because it's all green and we can see there's a 1, it means that there was probably a schedule that was running once a day and it was fine. This one here, we can see that there's gray and there's green. So what this means is that there has been some backups that have run successfully and some that haven't. So what this basically gives you is, just at a quick glance, you're able to look through, see where there's potentially problems or issues, and go in there and look to resolve them, whether you're going on site or ringing the customer or that type of thing, or being able to do it remotely through the server itself. And lastly, just jumping back to the main home screen, is adding a user. And I'll explain some of these points and how you can use it in terms of making it a lot easier during that first time initial customer setup. So you can set up a customer and give them an account name, like if they belong to a group of businesses. Username, you can enter a password for them. You can generate passwords, whether or not they have an email address. You can set it so their client automatically requests the storage destination. So what this means is that you don't, so when the customer runs the backup software itself, they don't need to plug in any details about where it's backing up to. It can essentially request the details of where it's being backed up to. And you're able to apply a policy. So you can set this up on a per level, on a per user level. So I could set up a customer and say, yep, I want them to have this policy and have that applied. You've also got the options to be able to reset passwords and require them to change on the next login. Then we've also got the option here for people that are importing and setting up users in bulk. You can do this via CSB and again, automatically request the storage vault and apply policies. So that's just a quick run through of the server itself. There's a lot more functionality, but that should just give you a high level overview of it. I'm just going to run through the customer software itself now, just so you can get an overview of how that works, and then I'll hand you back over to Ruben. So from here, this is what the client looks like. We can see here that this account has a quota. We can see whereabouts it is with the quota. We can see some news that we've pushed from the server to the client itself. And then we've got our action bar over here on the left, and also the protected items. So we can see the protected items that are on this customer device that are being run, the schedule when they're running, and then we've got the options here for backing up and restoring. So backing up is just quite simple. You just select a protected item and then you choose the type of backup that you're wanting to do. So I'll just quickly run through the disk image backup, as this is the most popular backup that we do. Select a disk image, and then you're presented with the computer and all of the disks and partitions that are available for it. If you're wanting to do a full bare metal recovery, you'd simply want to select everything on the computer. If not, you can simply select individual partitions. It entirely depends on you and the type of backup you're looking to achieve. Once you've selected it, you can simply go through and fill out the rest of the options. So we've got the ability to run pre and post commands before the backup. You can set up customizable schedules for how often you want to run the backup itself. And also custom retention for how many backup snapshots you keep before removing those as well. And then you can simply run the backup. When it comes to restoring, we just select where we're restoring from and the type of backup we're going to restore. So for disk image, we've got two options for the restoration. So the first is a restore to physical device, and this would be our bare metal recovery. So if we select this, we're presented with two options. So we're selecting on the left-hand side our backup and essentially where we were going to be restoring it to. So we could restore directly everything back for full bare metal, or again, you could simply just do individual partitions. It entirely depends on what type of restoration scenario you're looking to do. Also from here, you can gain access to Windows Disk Manager. If you need to reshape or resize any disks, you can do that from here. The second option allows you to restore as industry standard VMDK files, and this allows you to boot it up in something like a virtual disk. It also allows you to be able to restore it as a zip file itself. So there's a number of different options there. If you're wanting to do, I'll just jump over to one other backup type, and that is just a simple file and folder backup. You've got the option here for a number of quick items that you'd just be able to select to be able to back up, or custom. If you're just wanting to browse through and select some individual folders, you can do that here. So that's just a quick overview of the client and server itself. I really encourage you at some time just to have a bit of a play around and see the options that we have there. But I hope this has really sort of piqued your interest in the opportunities that you can have for backup here. And we really hope that you as the Orion partner base enjoy it and find some value from it. And we're certainly here to continue working with the team and look forward to seeing where we go next. So yeah, thanks very much for that.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Josh. Thank you. And yeah, thank you for jumping on and showing us through that. Really appreciate it. So I'll just bring my line back here again. Awesome. So yeah, I appreciate we're running a bit short of time, and also I apologize from the outset. So if you do have any questions, that we do have the live question chat there. In the interest of time, what we might do is, if you do have a question or want a follow-up discussion, if you leave your questions in the GoToWebinar chat there, we'll reach out to you directly after this, or even at the end of the slide deck, you'll have our contact details as well, so you can give us a buzz and get your questions answered there too. So I appreciate that. So yeah, I guess we'll get through these pretty quickly. At a high level, yeah, as Josh was saying, you saw how the backup as a service system works. We've been in the market for a backup as a service partner for a while, and Comet was the first and only one that we found that just ticks all the boxes. It's just such a well-designed, deliberately engineered piece of technology, and it works really well on our platform. So where we fit in and where we sort of see an advantage running it on us. For those not familiar with OrionVM, essentially, as I said before, we use a replicated storage technology. So we use a hyper-converged InfiniBand distributed vSAN. So in a nutshell, you're basically getting N+1 redundancy for the storage. On top of that, we run an object storage system, which then gives you multiple redundant copies, which is useful. And from a security perspective, as Josh said, you also get the benefit of the data being encrypted on the client and at rest. So from OrionVM's perspective, we're just storing encrypted binary blobs. We have no idea of what that data is, which is really important. So yeah, I'll be brief, but basically how BAS can add value to business. This is where we really see an opportunity as a wholesale MSP focused channel company. Is backup is often seen as a cost center. No one wants to do it. No one wants to talk about it or think about it. And it's because it's traditionally been such a pain in the ass and expensive to do properly, and expensive to cost out. So on our side, Comet's system is very, very affordable. Our object storage system is the most competitive one on the market. Those two combined, you get an opportunity to maximize your margin, grow consistent recurring revenue as well. So one of the great things about backups is it's a set and forget system. So if you install this agent on a remote device or a server, you're doing this on behalf of a client. Generally speaking, provided that it's sitting there, that will only keep growing with time. So it's a way to just add recurring revenue. We're a huge fan of that. And ultimately, you're building trust and confidence for your clients. You're not just delivering a particular service, you're also delivering that with backup. You can provide people the peace of mind and knowing that the technology behind it is rock solid, well developed, secure, and high performance. So really, it's a great way to sort of bundle together with a lot of our other tech as well. So because it's white labeled, it's your brand. You've spent a lot of time as an MSP, as a channel company, or as a company delivering these services. It's your reputation you've built up, so you can add that onto this. You can upsell it to your clients and basically create a sort of a product suite. So you can use our cloud infrastructure. We also do desktop as a service. We have a whole bunch of these different tools that you can white label and take to your clients and set them up to win. And in terms of the cost, it's really not there's no competition. We're benchmarked for, even just for the storage at 20 to 60% below AWS, depending on commit levels. And then in addition to that, the Comet server itself is also extremely affordable, and you get a fully integrated enterprise cloud solution. I'll just show you here, for those of you who haven't seen our cloud portal before as well, when I talk about integration, this is an example of what our administrative portal looks like for the white labeling for our cloud infrastructure. So you can see here, I've got 37 instances running in this reseller. It's end tier as well. So if you have a couple of different clients, you can segment them out into their own login portals. You can even then on-sell that to other customers who can then resell that themselves. And that flows through from the rate card, the billing, the API, the command line tools, and their backups. So it's really a complete all-in-one solution. And you can see this is an example of how you would provision a virtual machine on us in Sydney, which again, you would set up with a Comet-powered BAS system. So this is just an example of where we really see it strategically is there is a huge opportunity to deliver a cohesive system. You don't need to go to vendor A to get your backup. You don't need to go to vendor B to get this. We've developed this all-in-one solution system that you can take as much or as little as you want, deliver it as your own platform, which is really exciting. And then in terms of the pricing as well, this is the part probably a lot of you are interested in. So we have a bundle package here to start out. So for $99 a month, you get 2 terabytes of storage plus the white label portal. So in addition to that, you get all of the redundant storage, you get the security, you get the remote access, you get the quick restore from cloud. All of that stuff is really, really useful. And it's running on our object storage system, which is very simple. So, and the advantage here as well is that it also, just like our white label cloud infrastructure, the more you put on there, the cost per unit decreases pretty rapidly as well. So as you add more capacity, it becomes cheaper. And then you can set your own margin on top of that. And the great thing about this that I really like is that even with your own margin on top of that, you still come out ahead of some of the really big names that you all know and have heard of. So, which is just fantastic. And yeah, I guess we kind of covered some of the infrastructure side as well. So we have that architecture. It's very easy to provision infrastructure as well. That's just more just at a high level if you're also interested in the future with using our cloud with our backup system. And yeah, essentially the way we're able to offer these margins and the performance that you're expecting is we've really, just as Comet did with backup, we have really nailed storage on cloud infrastructure. We're able to deliver the same performance and storage performance and abilities that you have with very, very expensive replicated systems, but at a much lower price, which we then pass on to you. So even with your margin on top of that, you still come out ahead of the other large clouds. And the same now goes for backup, for desktop as a service, object store, and a few of these things. And we're built for the channel. So in terms of how you can get started, if you do want to deploy this on us, you can contact our sales team. If you're interested as well, we'll also forward you the details after this webinar as well, or you can also go to orionvm.com/backup as a service. There's a link at the bottom of the page there to contact us. So appreciate you all coming on. I can see there are some really good questions in the GoToMeeting. I appreciate we're a bit short of time. So what I might do actually is we'll take those questions on board, digest them, and then for anyone who has any questions, or if you would like some follow-up as well, we got your email address when you signed up here, so we'll get those answered for you. And yeah, thank you all for coming. Thank you again, Josh, for taking the time out as well to show us how it works. But appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
Cheers.